Okay, this is a Hunter Company TC3250 tire machine, upright tire machine. So a few things to just take note of before you get started using the equipment. To make sure you have a good set of safety boots of some sort with a closed toe, ideally steel toe. Also, you should always be wearing safety glasses because we'll be dealing with high pressure air. A few things to go over is just the actual components of the machine that help us break down a tire and to switch it on the rim. Okay, so of course on the right hand side of the machine, looking at it, we have the bead breaker. So this component moves in and out and it'll actually collapse the bead of the tire around the edge of the rim. Next we have two pedals on the front of the machine. Both of them are labeled. One is for the rotation of our tire mount here, you can see. And the other one is to actuate the clamps that are going to grip onto the rim of the wheel of the vehicle. By pushing down, it moves out. And by lifting up with your toe, it moves in. Various tires will have to be clamped differently based on the wheel type, the rim type. Next, we have the foot of the machine that actually removes the bead of the tire off of the rim. On the one side, we have a little notch out and a corner. This is pointing to the right, so this is where our bead is removed off the tire. It has a gradual upslope on the one side, which is what causes the bead to lift off the rim. So, as I was saying, the foot here has two very specific slopes on it, one for removing the bead and one for installing the bead. As you can see on the right hand side, there's a nice pocket here which will hold our tire iron that lifts the bead. This cradles the tire iron, so when you're pulling the bead up and over, you can lift it on the upside of this ramp, which as the machine rotates, it lifts the bead off the tire. And on the back side here, when we are installing the tire, we need the tire to be pushed back on to the rim, and it has to work downwards on the slope. These are two very important aspects of the machine. Otherwise, you can very easily damage a $200 tire without any intention of doing so. So as we're talking about the foot of the machine that is so vital to remove the actual tire off the wheel, that is connected to an arm that mechanically moves up and down. It just has a kind of a resistance fit so that it can fit various sizes of wheels and tires. So that has to be up and out of the way, of course, while we are mounting our tire onto the rim. Okay, so a few of the special tools you'll need for actually doing a tire removal is a wheel weight hammer, which has both a hammer to install the wheel weight but a claw on the back side to remove it, and a Schrader valve tool, so it has a small notch in it that actually takes the valve core right out of the valve stem on the tire. Wheel weight tool works just like this. Just locate the upper notch, bite down and peel it off. There's our wheel weight removed. Next, we're going to make sure both weights are removed off each side of the rim. Next, we'll remove our Schrader valve by simply inserting it into the valve stem counterclockwise, just like anything else that you're loosening. Okay, now this is the back of the wheel. As you can see, it has been marked properly with the corner of the vehicle that it came from, the right front. This is always best practice. Be sure that all your tires are marked before you start doing any mounting and balancing for best tire life and for TPMS practice. Okay, now that our tire has been deflated by removing the valve core and our weights are off, our first step is to break the bead off of the actual rim itself to prepare it to be stripped off on the rest of the machine. So first I rotate it in, I line up the bead right with the edge of the rim so it kind of cups it, and on the front hand foot pedal on the right side of the machine, it also not only rotates the machine but does provide the actuation for our bead breaker. And so I broke one side. Now I most likely will have to rotate my tire 180 degrees and break further. As you can see, the bead is broken thoroughly all the way around the edge of the rim. Now I would rotate my tire and do the exact same on the back side of it. Okay, now that the bead has been broken on both sides of the wheel, we can now mount our tire onto the actual clamping. Good technique here to save your back some agony is to get the wheel with both hands, rotate it into your knee, lift it with your foot, and then you can simply lift it right up onto the machine. Do your best to center it. And now our next step is to push down on the whole tire and rim so that it's flush. And then we step on our clamp, which is going to spread outwards. So that's the left-hand foot pedal. So now our tire is securely mounted on the machine. Our next step in the dismounting process is to use our tire iron here, which is located on the front side of the machine. And we bring the foot down into place right along the edge of the rim and bead. I'll push down and I just make sure that it is securely fit right next to the rim, as close as I can get. Now, as I pointed out in the foot demonstration, I can use either side of the bar. Either there's just a gradual slope on the one end, or you can use a little hook on the other end. Doesn't matter, whichever is your preference to remove the tire. So we'll take our tire iron, drop it right down in that little groove so that it sits in between our tire and then the foot and the rim. So to remove this wheel, our first thing is to push down on the 180 degrees opposite the actual tire machine. So this pushes the actual bead into the drop center of the tire. And as that happens, that gives us clearance to pull back on our tire iron and lift the bead up and over the foot for dismounting the tire. Now I like to hold my tire iron still, flat, so it's 180 degrees across the tire while I start the removal process. So all I do is simply push the rotation of the machine in a clockwise direction, that's coming down, and it lifts that top bead right off of the rim. Okay, now I need to remove the bottom side of the bead, and it also comes off of the top of the wheel. So my first thing I do is I grab the underside of the tire and I make sure that it is not stuck on the lower bead portion. So as you can see, the whole tire moves nice and freely. Okay? So now I lift up that bottom bead and I push it into the drop center of the wheel. And now I'm going to take my tire iron and I'm going to dish it down so that it's underneath the second bead. So this can be a little bit tricky, but sometimes you kind of have to hug the tire a bit, and then you lift up on that part of the bead, a little bit of a tug. So now again I have the bottom bead on top of the ramp of the foot that's doing the dismount, and again I push my rotation, and like that my tire is dismounted off of my rim. So in preparation for installing the new tire on the rim, or the winter tire on the rim, a few things that we're going to have to be cautious of is we often change our valve stem here that has a Schrader in it, so you're going to make sure that you inspect that and make sure it's in good condition. Another thing is right along the safety bead of the rim, we have to make sure that that's clean of rust and grime from the old tire, so that when we put the new tire on we have no bead leaks, which I will show you coming up in the mounting video.